Okay, class, what we will be doing today is called linear inequalities. This is a continuation of how to solve for the y in an equation and how to graph it and know if you have an inequality sign, you know if to shade above or below the graph. Okay, the objective for this lesson is students will be able to identify characteristics of linear functions, describe effects of parameter changes on the parent function, and determine the equation of a line from given information. Students analyze problems, situations, and collected data by representing the situation with tables, graphs, verbal descriptions, and algebraic generalizations, interpret the result, and predict values. Students represent linear inequalities and apply them to solve problem situations. Okay, so for the first part of the lesson, we have 4 equations right here. The first one being y is less than or equal to negative 2x plus 3. The second equation is 2x minus 3y is greater than 6. The third equation is y is greater than 1/2 x minus 5. And the last equation is x plus y is greater than or equal to 7. Okay, and for the first definition, it says the expressions above are called linear inequalities in 2 variables. Why? Do you all know why the equations given are linear? Can anybody answer that? Okay, that's very good. They're linear because they have a slope and a y-intercept. So go ahead and write that down for your first definition. Linear because it is in the mx plus b format. Do you all know why it has the word inequalities? That's very good, because it has the greater than or equal to sign, greater than sign, less than or equal to, or less than sign. So go ahead and write this down. It's inequalities because of the greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to signs. Okay? And last, we have 2 variables. What are those 2 variables? That's very good. X and y. 2 variables are x and y. Those are the 2 letters in the equation. So this is your definition for the first problem. Linear because it is in the mx plus b format. Inequalities because of the greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to signs, and two variables are the x and y. Okay, for the next definition, it says the graphs of linear inequalities involve two things. So it says the graphs of linear inequalities involve, and they involve two things. Can anybody tell me what those two things are? That's very good. They have a shaded region, and yes, a boundary line. A boundary line. Okay, so those are the two things of the graphs of linear inequalities. Okay, and how to graph. It says solve for y. So remembering this, you should already know. It says remember what must you do if you multiply or divide both sides of the equation by a negative number of an inequality equation. Does anybody remember what you have to do when you divide or multiply by a negative number? Yes, that's very good. You have to flip the inequality symbol. So for example, if you have this equation, 2x minus 3y is greater than 6, you have to solve for y. So what you must do first is, that's correct, you subtract 2x by both sides. This cancels out, and you're left with negative 3y is greater than negative 2x plus 6. Now, can anybody tell me what you do after that to leave the y alone? That's correct. You have to divide by a negative 3. You divide it all by negative 3. This cancels out, and you're left with y is greater than negative 2x over negative 3. That's just 2 over 3x. Plus, since it's 6 over a negative 3, you're left with a negative 2. So you have to subtract 2. And right here the symbol, since you divided by a negative number, you must flip the sign. So instead of a greater than sign, it would be a less than sign. So you just flip the sign the other way. Very good. Now, it says use, for the graph of the line, it says use blank and blank. What must you use to graph a line? Can anybody tell me? That's very good. You use the slope and the y-intercept. So you put slope and y-intercept. There you go. Those are the two things you use to graph a line. And it says here, you use solid lines. So a solid line, like this, for these inequality signs. When you have a greater than or equal to, or a less than or equal to inequality sign. And you use a dotted line dotted or broken, whatever you want to call it. It's like that for these two signs, a greater than or less than sign. These are different from these because these have a line under it, meaning equal to. Okay? Now, it says, pick a side. This is just a suggestion if you don't have a calculator at your house or if you just prefer this way. It says, select a point on one side of the line to test by plugging it into the original equation. This is a hint. Use the point 0, 0 if possible. So, if the final statement is true, you must blank. And if the final statement is false, you must blank. So, if you test the point 0, 0 and the final statement is true, you must shade the side with the test point. Go ahead and write this down. You shade. Let me write it down with another color so you won't get confused. So, you shade the side with the test point. And if the final statement is false, you must do the opposite. So you shade the other side. Shade the other side. There you go. So that's just a suggestion. You can use the point 0, 0 if you want. So let's start with the examples. We have a graph, and the equation is y is less than or equal to 2x plus 3. So, in order to graph this, we must look at the number that does not have a letter and this is your y-intercept. So you put this into a point which is 0, 3, and you graph that. So it's at 0, and you go up 3. 1, 2, 3. That's your first point. To get your next point, you look at the number with the x. You have a 2. To make this into a fraction, what must you do? Correct? You must put it over 1. So it's 2 over 1. So you go up 2 and 1 to the right. Up 2, 1 to the right, that's your point. Up 2, 1 to the right, that's your next point. And you can now make a line with that. There you go. Now, you can either plug this into your calculator and it will show you right away if you shade above or below, if you shade above or below, or you can just use the test point. You use 0, 0, so plug it in. X is 0 and y is 0. So it's y, it's 0, less than or equal to 2, x is 0, plus 3. So, again, 0, less than or equal to, what's 2 times 0? That's very good. That's 0, and then plus 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. So, is 0 less than or equal to 3? Very good. It is. So it's true. And since you have a line below the inequality sign, it's a solid line. So since it's true, you must shade towards the test point. Towards, your test point is right here. So towards would be below. So just shade this way. There you go. Now, you can continue with the rest of the problems.